This video will cover the range pattern at Poti Range, which is approximately 20 miles to the north of Cobbaletti. We'll be armed with Mark 82 Snake Eye low-level delivery weapons, and we're going to look at the dive pattern, the laydown pattern, but before that we'll look at joining the range. Our intrepid pilot is turning to the left here after takeoff from runway 07 at Cobbaletti, bearing in mind that the squadron and airfield SOPs is a circuit to the right. We'll be turning left downwind, departing at approximately 1500 feet in order to transit towards the range. This is the time to make sure your weapon switches are all selected and correct, as you expect them to be if you did not get an opportunity to do this on the ground. It's also an opportunity to dial up the course, perhaps for the LOA on the final run-in for the target or for the join on the range at Poti Range. Also a time to consider getting your squadron in good order and getting them on the correct side, however many aircraft you have. This should have been briefed at the briefing stage. Our pilot is now looking at where the range is and where we are in relation to the LOA. Range is off to the right here. Looking down at the HSI, we can see that we've drawn our course inbound and we'll start to fine-tune the turn inbound towards the range. After you've done it a few times, you will become a lot more familiar with exactly where you need to be. So bringing the formation to the right as we start to line up for our final join-in on the range. This one is not an FRA, a first run attack. This will be a standard join at the range where we'll maintain our 1500 feet. And you can see here what our pilot has done is designated the waypoint as a target by pressing the button as required on his HSI and his MFCD. This gives you a diamond in the HUD. So now let's go and have a look at what we're doing with our type of bombing and why are we using Mark 82 Snake Eye bombs that are retarded. So we want to attack our target. We drop a bomb, the bomb falls with us. That's the laws of gravity and physics. There's nothing we can do about it. If we're at low level, the bomb will take us out at the same time. Alternatively, we can attach a parachute or a series of fins which will drag to the bomb or add drag to the bomb, which will allow that bomb to come behind us, relatively speaking, still falling forwards, still falling down, but we've already disappeared before it goes off. So once again, we join our ace bombing pilot. He's looking to the left there to check where the rest of the formation is, nobody here today. And he's coming in at 1500 feet, 360 knots over the top of the target. It's almost like a regular circuit pattern. This one is higher though at 1500 feet. Turning downwind, holding that 350 to 360 knots, 1500 feet to establish a downwind leg. You must call that you are downwind. That's not for the range controller. That's so all your oppos in the formation know exactly where you are and what your intentions are. In this case, this would be perhaps something along the lines of Vixen 1, downwind, dive, target 1. A standard join, we would normally brief a 3-second break such that all my mates are behind me now streaming out downwind, ready for the attack. So let's now take another break and have a look at the kind of attack we're going to do. We've already said this is going to be a dive attack. There's our circle, there's our flight path marker, now that we're established in the dive, and we'll look at that shortly, how we do that. The figures that you're going to see in the HUD, of course, will naturally change during the dive, but essentially what we're looking to do is to put our flight path marker above and beyond the target, buried into a point in the ground that's not the target itself, but beyond the target. And once you progress down the dive, your bomb fall line with the CCIP impact point will march steadily towards the target. Obviously the numbers you see here, the 400 and the 1000 on the radar, and the speed would be changing as we go, but not in this instance. We pickle when the sight reaches the target. On the way down, what you'll need to do is trim the aircraft because you will be accelerating. You need to hold it steady. This is establishing a pass height. Get used to that picture and use that picture. You will have to trim if you're not in a fly-by-wire aircraft. There's a great deal of rubbish talked about on the DCS forums by armchair pilots on the subjects of CCIP bombing on any aircraft type and the use of Mark 82 Snake Eyes or similarly retarded bombs. A CCIP delivery is designed primarily as a low-level delivery because you must get eyes on the target. It does not matter where your targeting pod is looking, where your diamond is or your target designator, your eyes must be on the target, and the bomb fall line must fly through the target, and the CCIP pipper must be on the target. So rejoining him in the dive, you can see he overbanks in the dive and he heads down towards to set up his pass height. The aircraft is accelerating, the height is decreasing, he pickles the weapon and starts to pull up. Immediately start the turn downwind. We can't resist a sneaky look to see where the bombs went, but do not do that at the detriment of full flight safety. We turn downwind, we stabilise downwind again at 360 knots and 1500 feet. One thing we haven't mentioned, of course, as we tip in on the dive, we will call what our intentions are. In this instance, it would have been Vixen 1 in live, because it's a live weapon, not a practice weapon. So here's a picture of a real Harrier in a CCIP dive attack. You can see we've got approximately 5 or 6 degrees there, and the speed will have been increasing. It's marked as CCIP, and he's set a pass height just as we've described. So let's have another look at this kind of attack. We come around the corner, we've called downwind. As we come around the corner, we'll call in live, target 1. Overbanking, setting the pass height, wings level, trimming, pickle, off, turn downwind, call downwind. Now, as briefed, our ace bomber pilot now is descending into low level in the downwind pattern. This will be for laydown bombing. Laydown bombing is level bombing. That's the way the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy will call it. So this time we're going to be approximately 250 to 500 feet and 420 to 450 knots downwind, and you will call downwind laydown target 1. Because you called laydown, everybody knows to look for you low in the range pattern and not at the 1500 feet as you would use for the dive pattern. Let's take another break and have a look at what our ace weaponeer is about to try and achieve. Laydown bombing or level bombing is also a form of pass height bombing, except this time, because you're not in a dive, the flight path marker will not be buried at a point in the ground. You'll just maintain it level with the horizon, but it still achieves a height that you pass over the target. And that height that you pass over the target and the speed that you pass over the target is all about basic ballistics. Here, the weapon aiming computer will take care of all the calculations for you, but if you get used to these pictures, when that computer's not working or has a bullet hole in it, you'll be able to put up your standby sight reticle, fly those parameters, and pickle the bomb off fairly close to exactly where it needs to be done. Now, even on the range, you must exercise a great deal of caution on laydown bombing, particularly on this range. Your radar won't be seeing the tops of the trees. In fact, it will be looking through to the ground, so you're going to be very, very close to the trees, certainly within this simulation. Also, the target is very, very hard to acquire. In the real life scenario, if you haven't seen the target or done the required target study, you will probably require to pop to acquire the target. And this attack is used in a very high threat environment, a more realistic threat environment, certainly when you don't have total air superiority, such as we normally see when we use major operations with the US forces. We can never assume that we will have total air superiority. You must be practiced in this method of weapon delivery. So that's it for dive and laydown attacks academically on the range. I'm briefly going to have a look at strafe. I don't want to talk too much about strafe because there is a problem with the DCS AV-8B Harrier simulation. And here's the problem. A ground attack aircraft has the gun depressed by a few mils. By its very nature, you do not want to be burying the nose of the aircraft into the ground just to get a ground attack shot. An air-to-air fighter has the gun canted up a degree or two, thus helping you lead the attack. In this instance, look at where the flight path marker is and look at where the pipper is. Entirely unrealistic and unsafe for a ground attack aircraft. It is a limitation on the DCS simulation and you will not find it on a real aeroplane, so exercise extreme caution if attempting any strafe attacks. So that's it, bombing on the range. Next in this series of ace fighter pilot training will be low-level turns, tactical navigation and evasion.